Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. First of all, I've got an apology. This bike has taken way longer than I expected it to. I thought I'd have it done last summer in about 3 months, but because I've had a lot to learn, it's taken me a lot longer. So I'm about a year on. I haven't really done very much with it over the winter, so it's time to get back into doing this bike and getting it ready to go. It's actually not far off. But because it has been sitting here for the last couple of months with me not doing anything, I think what we need to do is almost start again and take stock of where we're at and what we've got left to do. So what we're going to do today, we're going to have a walk around the bike from front to back probably, and we're going to assess the state it's in now and kind of pretend we're starting from scratch. And from there I can make a plan to get it finished. It's not far off, so we've just got a few things left to do, but I need to remember what's left and what's done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my book. I spoke about this in the last video, and what we're actually going to do, we're going to use this to go through and assess the bike and see what we're up against. So if we take a look at the book, what we'll do, we'll go through the first pages and we can fill in the information about the bike. I'll go ahead and do that, but we're going to work through the assessment and planning stage. So we can see here what we've got sections for frame, forks and suspension, wheels and tyres, handlebars, controls, engine and transmission, exhaust system, fairings, bodywork, lights, electrical, brakes, footpegs and controls, fluids, cables and hoses, kickstand and centre stand, general inspection and things like that. So what we'll do, we'll work through these and we'll see what we've got left to do. Now, before we get going, let's just have a quick walk around the bike and have a look, just so you can remember where we're up to. So this is the Yamaha YZF R125. It is a 2010 bike, but it's actually got a Generation 2 engine in. So we need to kind of mix and match what we're looking at when we're online, so we can balance the two. We have done quite a lot of work already. We did replace the forks and rebuilt them. We've done a bit of work and painted the handlebars. We've had the engine out. We've completely cleaned that through and redone that, changed all the cooling system, put a new fan on it. We built new lines, new fuel lines, because the fuel supply is on the other side, so I needed some slightly longer lines to get it around onto this side. We've cleaned it up a lot. We've got a new chain on there, new rear sprocket and front sprocket. We've taken off and painted up the swing arm. We've taken off and painted the license plate holder to make that nicer. We've completely cleaned all of the calipers on here, took them off, cleaned them out, degreased them, and redone the brake fluid. We painted the casing on the engine as well, because that was quite scratched up to make that look nicer, so that's good. We've got new gaskets inside. I also had to change the clutch inside because there was a broken bolt in there. And that's about where we're up to, so we've still got work to do on the wheels. But let's go through the full assessment and actually take a look at where the bike is at and what's left. First thing we want to look at is the frame. So as we can see, we need to check for visible bends, cracks or other structural damage to the frame, look for signs of previous repair such as welding or added bracing, measure the alignment of the frame to ensure it hasn't been twisted. So let's go and have a look at that now. So the frame is straight. I don't have the ability to actually measure it here. What I tend to do is put a straight bit of wood along it, just make sure everything's in alignment, the rear wheel, the centre, the gas tank, the controls, forks and the front wheel, so I can test the alignment there. But the frame isn't bent, it is actually straight. There are no signs on here of previous weldings. The welds that we currently have appear to be from factory, so there is no sign that other repair work has happened on here. It's important because we don't want any bad structural integrity on here, so everything on the frame looks good. If we take a look down the bike, as I said, it looks like the alignment is good. I don't think this bike has actually been in an accident. I think it's just been quite badly treated and cared for, so it's just taken a lot of clean up, replacing worn out parts, things like that. So the frame, I'm confident, is absolutely straight. So I can just go ahead, tick off these. No signs of previous accident or repairs. Next up, we can go on to forks and suspension. So we want to inspect the forks for straightness and any signs of bending or twisting. Check the fork tubes for scratches, dents or leaks. and examine the suspension linkage and shock absorbers for damage. Like I say, I have taken the forks out and completely rebuilt them just to make sure. So there's no leaks around the fork seals here, so we want to make sure that's nice and clean around here. So we've got no leaks on either side. That's because I have rebuilt them. I do know that there is now the right amount of fork oil in there, so we're good. And it's hard to maybe see on camera, but they are straight. I know they are straight because I did measure them. The way to measure them is very simple. You put them on a known flat surface, roll them, and you can see if they roll straight or not. So as we can see, the front forks do look clean. There is no scratches or wear around here, so we know that there's no grit or anything in there causing compromise to the fork tubes. And I say the seals are all good. So forks and suspension looks good. Also onto the rear swing arm, so we're looking at the suspension here as well. So again, we've had this out and cleaned it, so that's nice and usable in there. It's good, still good condition. The swing arm moves as it should do. So suspension, I think we're looking good. So again, we can tick these off. They've been checked and we know that that's all good. All good. Next thing we want to look at is the wheels and tyres. So inspect both wheels for cracks, dents and bends, check the axles for straightness and examine the tyres for uneven wear, punctures and damage. So if we go through, we can have a look at the wheels. I know that there's no cracks or dents in the wheel, they are straight. We do have this blistering here though, so the paintwork is blistering somewhat, so I think they are going to need stripping down and repainting. But other than that, we can't see any significant damage to the wheels. They do look straight, there's no cracks. Again, we've got blistering on the paintwork, so that's something we can just tidy up. But other than that, the wheels do actually look in good condition. So they are savable and reusable, they just need tidying up. Onto the back wheel, same story here. They're actually straight, in good condition, they just need stripping down and repainting. Now when we come to look at the tyres, the tyres do look quite dry. Now what you'll find when a tyre gets a bit old, they tend to pit and bobble a bit and you see some cracks in them. They're probably not quite at the point of having dry rot on them, but I think I will replace them anyway. I think they've been sat in there for a while anyway. We can probably look for the manufacturer's code on here, so there is a point on the tyre that tells you when it was manufactured. So when we're looking for the year the tyre was produced, we're looking for this dot reference, so that means Department of Transport, and then if we work up, we have this number at the end of it. We can see that the date code on it, these last 4 digits, is 3720. The 37 means the week of the year that the tyre was manufactured, and the last 2 digits is the year. So this was manufactured in 2020. So actually the tyres are not too old, they're not too bad. However, I think for safety I'm going to replace them anyway. The last thing we'd need to do is check the axles for straightness to make sure they're straight. It's a bit difficult to see when the tyre is actually on. However, I've had these wheels off and I've done a roll test on the axles and I do know that they are straight. So that's the rear axle. And again, with the front axle, I know that is straight. I have checked it previously, so I'm confident that we're okay there. So we can come in and we can tick off with respect to the wheels, they're okay. Check the axle straightness and examine tyres. So I can write in here, wheels need painting, tyres 3720, replace anyway. My writing really isn't very neat, and especially when you're trying to do it holding a camera, doesn't make it easy. Okay, so moving on, now we're looking at handlebars and controls. So we need to check the handlebars for bends and damage, inspect the grips, levers and controls for any signs of impact, ensure the throttle, brake and clutch operate smoothly. So if we come on to the handlebars, we can see now I have actually had these off already and I have painted them, and these are straight. There was no signs of impact. You'd normally be able to see on the ends of the shifters and in the end of the handlebars here. These are new, these may or may not stay, I don't know if they look tacky or not, but there's no signs of impact here. Handlebars are all straight. On this side, okay, so we can actually see here this bike has been down on the floor and it has scraped across the floor. So there is some sign there that it's gone. Now I know this is the case because the fairings are all scratched up as well. So this doesn't look like significant damage to the bike. It's just been on the floor and slid along a little bit. But we'll replace these shifters anyway. Again, we are straight across the top. I know that because I've had it off and I have repainted it. So marking off this section, yep, check handlebars, bends and damage, inspect grip, levers, controls, any signs of impact, and ensure throttle. So we're good there. So we need to replace shifters. Next we come on to the engine and transmission. So we want to look for any oil or coolant leaks. We want to inspect the engine case for cracks or damage, check the transmission for smooth shifting, and check whether the engine starts or at least cranks. So first of all, check for any leaks. So this bike has been sitting here for a little while. We know, and I know there's no leaks down here. We'd see it on the mat underneath. I did have an oil leak previously, so I've replaced the gasket on the other side. And since we've done that, there's no fresh leakage down here, so we're all good. You can see a little bit of coolant on here. I think that's just from the coolant overflow, so I'm not too concerned about that. But other than that, there is no visible oil on the engine casing at all. So everything looks nice and sealed up there. Same with the brakes. So I know the brakes are bled properly, so there's no leaks or anything, or any liquid around the brake calipers. So everything seems to be nicely sealed, all dry. Okay, so what I need to do now is just make sure the engine starts or at least cranks over. So let's try and give it a start. That's good, at least we can hear the fuel pump working, so we can just prime the lines a bit by turning the ignition on a couple of times. Looking good there. So then if we come in to start it, I think we are in neutral. Cold start, not too bad for a cold start. The engine is running and cranking. So now what we can do, we can leave the engine to run up to temperature and just make sure that there's no oil leaks as it gets moved around the system. Struggling, will it recover? Okay. We might need to fix the idle a little bit. But we're looking around this side and we can see again there are no leaks. The engine is cranking. Well, it's cranking. The engine is running. So we are good. Do need to just tighten up some of the engine mount bolts, but that's okay. Other than that, the engine is running quite nicely. No signs of oil leaks underneath. All looks nice and dry. Well, looking okay. Okay, so going back to the book, so look for any oil or coolant leaks, we're okay there. Inspect engine in case of cracks or damage, we're okay, no cracks or damage. Check the transmission for smooth shifting. Okay, so I've not taken it out on the road. Okay, so I've not taken it out on the road to try that, so that I'll leave that unticked because that's something I haven't checked yet. And check whether the engine starts or at least cranks, and yes, it does. So all we need to do is take it on the road and just check for how smooth the shifting is. Moving on now to the exhaust system. So we want to inspect the exhaust pipes for dents, cracks or damage and check for loose or damaged mufflers. So looking through the exhaust from start to finish, we have replaced the gasket and the bolts, and through the exhaust pipe it is all clear. No smoke's coming out or oil. We are fixed in. Now the sleeve does have some damage, so this has obviously slid down the road a little bit. So we probably could just get this re-sleeved, or we could just get a new slot on rear exhaust piece. But other than that, the exhaust appears to be running okay. If we just start it again, we'll just see if there's any holes in there or any smoke coming out. That looks good. No gaps or cracks. No exhaust fumes coming out where they shouldn't be. We are happy here. Exhaust needs new sleeve. So moving on now, so we can look at the fairings and the bodywork. So I'm going to skip over this one. I have a new set of fairings in that box up there, so I'm not too concerned about the old fairings. They're all pretty much damaged. But what we would look at is examine the fairings and body panels for cracks, scratches or broken mounts. Yeah. Assess the condition of paint and the decals. Check the windshield or windscreen for cracks or damage. Okay, so I'm actually going to skip this section because I'm going to put a whole new set of fairings on there, so that's not a concern. So we can tick that as done. All new bearings and windscreen needed. Next up, we're looking at the lights and electrical components. So we need to verify that all lights, so the headlights, turn signals, brake lights are functional. Check the wiring harness for damaged exposed wires or frayed connections. Inspect the battery and charging system. Fully charged battery should have at least 12.6 volts. There should be no sign of battery acid leakage. Okay, so that's the difficult test for us now. I'll leave that after. I don't have any headlights on here, so I'll leave that unticked so that when I connect up the front of the bike I can go back and recheck that. So I don't know if they're going to work or not yet. Same with the front indicators. I don't have any front indicators on here, so I can't check them at the moment. But we do have a rear light, a tail light and rear indicators. So if we put the ignition on, we can see that the tail light comes on, and we can look at the indicators here. Okay, so we can see that the left rear indicator is working okay. However, the rear right indicator is not working, so that will need replacing. I do have another bulb. It could just be the bulb, or it could be a wire or a relay. So hopefully it's just the bulb, but that does need replacing. There is a new battery in here, so I know there's no sign of battery acid leakage. It's under the seat. Can't see it, but I do know that that is good, and it's a brand new battery. In general, the wiring loom is okay. There's a few areas where it has been repaired with electrical tape, so some of that needs to probably be tidied up a bit nicer, but generally the wiring loom is in decent condition. I think there is an issue with the side stand switch. That doesn't seem to work, so I have to short it for the bike to turn on, so we can double check that. And over on this side, this is not great electrical. This is a temperature sensor. So what we need to do is we need to rebuild this plug. I do have a replacement for that already. So we can just snip this off, put a new plug on it to go into there, so it's nice and waterproof because that's going to be exposed to the elements. So that definitely needs sorting out. This is just an exhaust sensor. This won't be used on this bike because it's part of the Gen 2 engine and doesn't have a sensor on the exhaust, so that will just be dangling loose. Here, so I'm not going to tick verify all lights work because I need to retest that later. So if I don't tick it now, I know I need to look at that when the electrical system's back up and running. Check the wiring harness for damaged exposed wires, frayed connections. Well, I have done that, and I have inspected the battery. I'm not going to do it now, but I have also, I say it's a brand new battery, so I know it is providing 12 volts and it does charge okay. But I did notice a couple of things, so we might need to look at side stand switch, replace temp sensor plug, replace rear right indicator bulb. Okay, next section we're going to look at is to check the brake disc for warping or damage, inspect the brake calipers for leaks or damage, and assess the brake lines for any signs of wear or damage. As we come onto the brake discs, we can have a look straight down the back, and these are looking okay. You will find some rust will form on them when it sits here for a while and doesn't get used. It's the same with cars, and it will probably scrape a little bit when I first roll this out, but as I use the brakes it will wear off some of that rust on the edge and it'll be okay. But these look pretty good. I have had them off and done a full inspection around the other side, so they're looking good, not warped, not cracked, so I think they're reusable. And the same on the front, so if we run around it we can see that they are straight. Again, they're not warped, so there's no cracks in them, they're nice and level, so they seem to be in good condition, so I think we can keep them. Moving on to the brake calipers, as I say, I have actually taken these off and completely cleaned them and rebuilt them, so I know they're in good condition. The brake pads are good, that's all okay. All the lines are nice and sealed, there is no leaks. If we follow the brake lines all the way up, we can see the cables are okay. There's no damage or crack in them all the way up to the brake fluid reservoir, and that all looks fine, so we can leave that as it is. Same thing with the master cylinder on the rear. That rubber cover is cracked, so that might give a bit of a weather issue. So maybe we can just replace that rubber cover. But other than that, fluid's coming down, the lines look good. Master cylinder, this is actually a new master cylinder, so we're okay there. So we're looking good on the brakes. Same with the rear caliper. Again, I have taken this apart, cleaned it and put it back together. So everything is good there. There's no leaks on the brake fluid, so we're looking good. So we've checked the brake discs, we've checked the calipers and assessed the brake lines, so we're all good there. Now we can move on to footpegs and controls. So inspect the foot pegs and foot controls for damage or bending. Ensure that gear shifter and brake pedal operate smoothly. Looking at the foot pegs, I've strapped this one up because I keep walking into it as I walk by it, but these are in good condition, that's not too bad. The rubber cover on the clutch lever is slightly damaged and worn down, so we can probably just replace that. Other than that, I think it looks okay underneath. We could take it off, give it a respray, but actually I think it's just grease. I don't think it even needs it, just a new rubber cover. So that's okay. So the foot peg's all right. The rear set looks okay. A couple of scratches on there. Might just want to strip that down and repaint it just to make it look brand new. But generally we're okay on the foot pegs on this side. Coming over to this side, again we can see the rear set is okay. I think that's just grease that will clean off. If I want to, we could take it off, respray it. This is looking okay. There's a bit of a scrape on there, so we could replace this if we want it to look factory new, or that might just be okay. Foot pegs look all right, nice and straight, so no concerns there. So I'm happy with all of those foot pegs, and I don't think anything really needs to be done with them. So we can tick them off, they're okay. Oh, actually I shouldn't tick that because I haven't tested the gear shifter, so I shouldn't have ticked that. Let's scribble that out. That still needs to be checked when the bike's on the road. Okay, so coming on now, check the levels of oil, coolant and brake fluid. Look for any contamination or discoloration of fluids indicating potential issues. Use a flashlight to check for rust in the fuel tank. So I know the oil levels are fine, and there is fresh oil in here, so it's been replaced once or twice. I've run some liquid moly engine cleaner through there as well a couple of times, so the oil levels are absolutely fine. Coolant levels, brand new coolant, so again we've got plenty of coolant in there, that's okay, and that we can see it in the lines as well, so it's being pulled through the system as we expect, so that's good. Brake fluid, I will go through and check the brakes after. That has been done. I have bled the brakes, but I can just go and check that they're okay. Obviously there's no concern on rust in the fuel tank because it's plastic, it's not metal, so the fuel tank is fine and we don't need to worry about that. So fluids, all good. Cable and hoses related to this, inspect the throttle cable, clutch cables and brake hoses for kinks, fraying or damage. Ensure that all cables and hoses are properly routed and secured. Now these are all fine now, so start with the fuel lines. The electrical power is good. I've built a new fuel line, so that's brand new, so I know that that is good and routed okay and there's no leaks. All the rest of the lines that come down, these are fine. So for the clutch cable, runs down and into there, so there's a new clutch cable, so that's okay. So the coolant lines, some of them I did replace because they went a bit hard at the ends and looked like they deteriorated. Some of them are reusable, so they're okay. See that they are routed as the way they should be. The wiring, the hose routing, I find to be one of the most difficult things on a bike when you've bought it broken, because it's difficult to know where they should route. They often have these little white tapes on them, so these are little markers of where they should be in relation to the bike, so we need to go into the service manual to make sure these are all routed right. Again, throttle cable, that's okay, that's set. We might need to just change the idle setting on that a little bit, but hoses coming through, some overflows, and then the rear brake line, so that needs to be bolted onto the rear swing arm. Other than that, they all look okay. Attach rear brake hose to swing arm. There you go, so we don't forget it. Now we're on to the final page of assessment and planning. So the kickstand and centre stand. So ensure the kickstand and centre stand for proper functionality. Ensure they are not bent or damaged. So the kickstand is in good condition. I'm probably going to take it out and give it a respray anyway. Paint's just stripping off at the bottom, but the spring action works nicely. So that's pretty good. I do think that there is a problem with the kickstand sensor though, so I'm probably going to replace that because it doesn't seem to be acknowledging when I connect it up. So I think there's an issue with the kickstand sensor. Other than that, kickstand looks fine, nothing's bent, works the way it does. Bolt might be a bit loose. Yeah, I think the bolt just needs tightening up. Other than that, it's looking good. So we can go ahead, tick them off. Tighten, kickstand bolt, replace kickstand switch. And that's a cut-off switch on the kickstand, so the bike will not start with the kickstand down, so that needs replacing. Just thought to add a note in to tighten the engine mount bolts as well. I did notice that a couple of them are a bit loose, so we can have a look at that. And on to the last section, the general inspection. So I want to look for any loose or missing bolts or fasteners, inspect the overall condition of the motorcycle for any hidden damage, what is the backstory of the bike, how long has the bike been standing, what caused the damage, look at the general condition of the bike, how well it's been maintained. If the sprockets are worn and the chain is rusty, expect more wear and tear to be present. So we've already done a general look around the bike and we know that things are okay. We do know the bike has not been well maintained in the past, so a lot of things that can wear I have just replaced anyway. Like I say, new rear and front sprockets, new chain, everything else has been cleaned up, we tidied all the engine through. So generally the structure of the bike is absolutely fine and there's no problems with it. It has slid down the road once or twice I think, but other than that the general condition of the bike is actually very, very good. So once we get those bits of wear and tear sorted, get the wheels cleaned up, I think the bike should be a really good runner. So I'm really happy with the progress we're at, and honestly I think we're nearly finished. Obviously I don't have anywhere near enough subscribers to be sponsored on YouTube. Please subscribe and that will help me change that. However, what I do have is my own book. So just before Christmas I put together the Motorcycle Rebuild Logbook. This is a really good guide. It's something I really wish I had when I started doing these bikes, so I thought I'd do it myself. It's basically a notebook that lets you track the whole build of your motorcycle, and it goes through different sections from finding your project, so the things that you need to look for when you go out and look at a bike that you want to buy, and then we can put some details on the bike that you actually found, and then we can go through assessment and planning. So it walks you through all the different steps of assessing the state of the bike and planning what you need to do to rebuild it, so you can keep a note of it. So it makes a nice little tracker of the bike as you go through. Preparing your shop, so how to make sure you've got all the tools and things that you need to get started, and then we can go through disassembly. Now it's not going to tell you how to do these things, it's just going to tell you what you should be doing. So it's applicable to all different motorbikes. You just need to make sure you've got the service manual to tell you how to do it. We can track where we're going to store all the parts, because I've ended up with screws and bolts and everything all over the place and it's easy to lose them. Engine work, so how to give a basic engine check over, stripping paint, how to go through the engine if it won't start, how to repair and check the frame and the bodywork. So literally all this useful information that you need to take you through finding your bike project all the way through, stripping it down, painting it, restoring it, fixing it, rebuilding it. We even have little bits on here for checking, so we can go through and see if it adheres to what would be the UK MOT test. Even if you're not in the UK, it's a really good standard for safety that you should adhere to, so it's worth going through. General things to test, so once you've finished, just walk through step by step, make sure you've tested everything off, and make sure it's all ready to go. And then a cost tracker, and then obviously some line pages for your own notes afterwards. So a really good thing. Please go to Amazon, have a look at it. It's a really useful tool. It's what you can pass along with the bike as well, so the new owner can see the state of the bike and everything that's been done to it. So highly recommend it. Please do check it out on Amazon, and it really does help support me so I can do more projects like this. Okay, so that's the current status of the bike. That's where we're currently at. I think we're nearly done. We're going to have to check some of the front and the electricals as we go with the lights, but I think we can get the last couple of bits done, get the wheels sorted out, get the fairings on, and I think the bike is nearly ready to go. So doing the assessment on there, there's nothing major left that we need to focus on. So I'm really happy with that. The book's been super helpful for me to tell me what to look for, and now we can move on to each section that's left. So I hope that's useful. I hope that gives you a guide of what to look for when you go and assessing the damage on a bike you might build. And for me, I want to try and get this done within the next couple of weeks so you can see me out on the road on it. So keep watching. I have been slow uploading videos, but I hope to get quicker going forward, and I can't wait to see you next time.